Friday, 26th of May, 1944. Dear Kitty, at last, I can sit quietly at my table in front of a crack of a window and write you everything. I feel so miserable. I haven't felt like this for months. Even after the burglary, I didn't feel so utterly broken. On the one hand, the vegetable man, the Jewish question, which is being discussed minutely over the whole house, the invasion delay, the bad food, the strain, the miserable atmosphere, my disappointment in Peter, and on the other hand, Eli's engagement, Whitsun reception, flowers, Crawler's birthday, fancy cakes, and stories about cabarets, films, and concerts. That difference, that huge difference, it's always there. One day we laugh and see the funny side of the situation, but the next we are afraid. Fear, suspense, and despair starting from our faces. Miep and Crawler carry the heaviest burden on the 8th in hiding. Miep in all she does, and Crawler through the enormous responsibility, which is sometimes so much for him that he can hardly talk from pent-up nerves and strain. Kufus and Eli look after us well too, but they can forget us sometimes, even if it's only for a few hours, or a day, or even 2 days. They have their own worries. Kufus over his health, Eli over her engagement, which is not altogether rosy, but they all also have their little outings, visits to friends, and the whole life of ordinary people. For them, the suspense is sometimes lifted, even if it's only for a short time. But for us, it never lifts for a moment. We've been here for 2 years now. How long have we still to put up with this almost unbearable, ever-increasing pressure? The sewer is blocked, so we mustn't run water, or rather, only a trickle. When we go to the WC, we have to take a lavatory brush with us, and we keep dirty water in a large cologne pot. We can manage for today, but what do we do if the plumber can't do the job alone? The municipal scavenging services doesn't come until Tuesday. Miep sent us a currant cake, made up in the shape of a doll with the words Happy Whitsun on the note attached to it. It's almost as if she's ridiculing us. Our present frame of mind and our uneasiness can hardly be called happy. The affair of the vegetable man has made us more nervous. You hear shh, shh from all sides again, and we're being quieter over everything. The police forced the door there, so they could do it to us too. If one day we too should, no, I mustn't write it, but I can put the question out of my mind today. On the contrary, all the fear I've already been through seems to face me again in all its frightfulness. This evening at 8 o'clock I had to go to the downstairs lavatory all alone. There was no one down there, as everyone was listening to the radio. I wanted to be brave, but it was difficult. I always feel much safer here upstairs than alone downstairs in that large, silent house. Alone with the mysterious muffled noises from upstairs and the tooting of motor horns in the street. I have to hurry, for I start to quiver if I begin thinking about the situation. Again and again I ask myself, would it not have been better for all of us if we had not gone into hiding, and if we were dead now, and not going through all this misery, especially as we shouldn't be running our protectors into danger any more? But we all recoil from these thoughts too, for we still love life. We haven't forgotten the voice of nature. We still hope about everything. I hope something will happen soon now, shooting if need be. Nothing can crush us more than this restlessness. Let the end come, even if it is hard. Then at least we shall know whether we are finally going to win through or go under. Yours, Anne. Wednesday, 31st of March, 1944. Dear Kitty, it was so frightfully hot on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday that I simply couldn't hold a fountain pen in my hand. That's why it was impossible to write to you. The drains were put again on Friday, were mended again on Saturday. Mr. Kufus came to see us in the afternoon and told us masses about Corey and her being in the same hockey club as Jopi. On Sunday, Eli came to make sure no one had broken in and stayed for breakfast. On Whit Monday, Mr. Van Santen acted as the hideout watchman, and, finally, on Tuesday, the windows could be opened again at last. There's seldom but been such a beautiful, warm, one and even say hot Whitsun. The heat here in the secret annex is terrible. I will briefly describe these warm days by giving you a sample of the sort of complaints that arise. Saturday. Lovely. What perfect weather, we all said in the morning. If only it wasn't quite so warm in the afternoon when the windows had to be closed. Sunday. It's positively unbearable, this heat. The butter's melting, there's not a cool spot anywhere in the house, the bread's going dry, the milk's going sour, windows can't be opened, and we, wretched outcasts, sit here suffocating while other people enjoy their Whitsun holiday. Monday. My feet hurt me. I haven't got any thin clothes. I can't wash the dishes in this heat. All this from Mrs. Van Daan. It was extremely unpleasant. I still can't put up with the heat, and am glad that there's a stiff breeze today, and yet the sun still shines. Yours, Anne. Monday, 5th of June, 1944. Dear Kitty, fresh secret annex troubles. A quarrel between Dussel and the Franks over something very trivial, the sharing out of the butter. Dussel's capitulation. Mrs. Van Daan and the latter very thick, flirtations, kisses, and friendly little laughs. Dussel is beginning to get longings for women. The Fifth Army has taken Rome. The city has been spared devastation by both armies and air forces, and is undamaged. Very few vegetables and potatoes. Bad weather. Heavy bombardments against the French coast and Pas de Calais continue. Yours, Anne. Tuesday, 6th of June, 1944. Dear Kitty, this is D-Day, came the announcement over the English news, and quite rightly, this is the day. The invasion has begun. The English gave the news at 8 o'clock this morning. Calais, Boulogne, Le Havre, and Cherbourg, also the Pas de Calais, as usual, were heavily bombarded. Moreover, as a safety measure for all occupied territories, all people who live within a radius of 35 kilometers from the coast are warned to be prepared for bombardments. If possible, the English will drop pamphlets 1 hour beforehand. According to German news, English parachute troops have landed on the French coast. English landing crafts are in battle with the German Navy, says the BBC. We discussed it over the annex breakfast at 9 o'clock. Is this just a trial landing like Dieppe 2 years ago? English broadcasts in German, Dutch, French, and other languages at 10 o'clock. The invasion has begun. That means the real invasion. English broadcast in German at 11 o'clock. Speech by the Supreme Commander, General Dwight Eisenhower. The English news at 12 o'clock in English. This is D-Day, General Eisenhower said to the French people. Stiff fighting will come now, but after this, the victory. The year 1944 is the year of complete victory. Good luck. English news in English at 1 o'clock. Translated. 11,000 planes stand ready and are flying to and fro non-stop, landing troops and attacking behind the lines. 4,000 landing boats plus small craft are landing troops and material between Cherbourg and Le Havre incessantly. English and American troops are already engaged in hard fighting. Speeches by Gerbrandy, by the Prime Minister of Belgium, King Haakon of Norway, de Gaulle of France, the King of England, and last but not least, Churchill. Great commotion in the secret annex. Would the long-awaited liberation that has been talked of so much, but which still seems too wonderful, too much like a fairy tale, ever come true? Can we be granted victory this year, 1944? We don't know yet, but hope is revived within us. It gives us fresh courage and makes us strong again. Since we must pay up bravely with all the fears, privations, and sufferings, the great thing now is to remain calm and steadfast. Now, more than ever, we must clench our teeth and not cry out. France, Russia, Italy, and Germany, too, can all cry out and give vent to their misery, but we haven't the right to do that yet. Oh, Kitty, the best part of the invasion is that I have the feeling that friends are approaching. We have been oppressed by those terrible Germans for so long, they have had their knives so at our throats, that the thought of friends and delivery fills us with confidence. Now, it doesn't concern the Jews any more. No, it concerns Holland and all occupied Europe. Perhaps Margot says, I may yet be able to go back to school in September or October. Yours, Anne. P.S. I'll keep you up to date with all the latest news. Friday, 9th of June, 1944. Dear Kitty, super news of the invasion. The Allies have taken Biox, a small village on the French coast, and are now fighting for Caen. It's obvious that they intended to cut off the peninsula where Cherbourg lies. Every evening, war correspondents give news from the battlefront, telling us of the difficulties, courage, and enthusiasm of the army. They manage to get hold of the most incredible stories. Also, some of the wounded who are already back in England again came to the microphone. The Air Force are up all the time in spite of the miserable weather. We heard over the BBC that Churchill wanted to land with the troops on D-Day. However, Eisenhower and the other generals managed to get him out of the idea. Just think of it, what pluck he has for such an old man. He must be 70 at least. The excitement here has worn off a bit. Still, we're hoping that the war will be over at the end of this year. It'll be about time, too. Mrs. Van Dan's grizzling is absolutely unbearable. Now, she can't any longer drive us crazy over the invasion. She nags us the whole day long about the bad weather. It really would be nice to dump her in a bucket of cold water and put her up in the loft. The whole of the secret annex, except Van Dan and Peter, have read the trilogy Hungarian Rhapsody. This book deals with the life history of the composer, virtuoso, and child prodigy Franz Liszt. It is a very interesting book, but in my opinion there is a bit too much about women in it. In his time, Liszt was not only the greatest and most famous pianist, but also the greatest ladies' man, right up to the age of 70. He lived with the Duchess Marie de Gold, Prince Caroline Sayn-Wittgenstein, the dancer Lola Monetz, the pianist Ange Kingsworth, the pianist Sophie Mentor, Princess Olga Janina, Baroness Olga Meyendorff, the actress Lilia What's-Her-Name, etc., etc. It is just endless. The parts of the book that deal with music and art are much more interesting. Among those mentioned are Schumann, Clara Wieck, Hector Berlioz, Johannes Brahms, Beethoven, Joachim, Richard Wagner, Hans von Bülow, Anton Rubinstein, Frédéric Chopin, Victor Hugo, Honoré de Balzac, Hiller, Hummel, Czerny, Rossini, Cherubini, Paganini, Mendelssohn, etc., etc. Liszt was personally a fine man, very generous and modest about himself, though exceptionally vain. He helped everyone. His art was everything to him. He was mad about cognac and about women, could not bear to see tears, was a gentleman, would never refuse to do anyone a favor, didn't care about money, loved religious liberty and world freedom. Yours, Anne. Tuesday, 13th of June, 1944. Dear Kitty, another birthday has gone by, so now I'm 15. I received quite a lot of presents. All 5 parts of Sprenger's History of Art, a set of underwear, a handkerchief, 2 bottles of yogurt, a pot of jam, a spiced gingerbread cake, and a book on botany from Mummy and Daddy, a double bracelet from Margot, a book from the Van Dans, sweet peas from Dussel, and sweets and exercise books from Miep and Eli, and the high spot of all, the book Maria Theresa, and 3 slices of full cream cheese from Crawler. A lovely bunch of peonies from Peter. The poor boy took a lot of trouble to try and find something, but didn't have any luck. There's still excellent news of the invasion. In spite of the wretched weather, countless gales, heavy rains, and high seas. Yesterday, Churchill, Smuts, Eisenhower, and Arnold visited French villages which have been conquered and liberated. The torpedo boat that Churchill was in shelled the coast. He appears like so many men, not to know what fear is. Makes me envious. It's difficult for us to judge from our secret redoubt how people outside have reacted to the news. Undoubtedly, people are pleased that the idle English have rolled up their sleeves and are doing something at last. Any Dutch people who still look down on the English, scoff at England and her government of old gentlemen, call the English cowards, and yet hate the Germans, deserve a good shaking. Perhaps it would put some sense into their woolly brains. I hadn't had a period for over 2 months, but it finally started again on Saturday. Still, in spite of all the unpleasantness and bother, I'm glad it hasn't failed me any longer. Yours, Anne.